The darkness between stars had never known such terror. Across the galaxy, entire worlds went silent as the shadow of the HFY dominion spread like poison through space. These creatures were not just conquerors, they were something far worse. They fed on fear itself. Hive Commander Zelkar stood in the heart of his flagship, watching another world burn through the viewing ports. His body was a nightmare of black chitin and razor-sharp limbs. 6 eyes glowed red in his elongated skull. Behind him, hundreds of his warriors clicked and hissed in their alien language. The sound was like insects scratching inside metal walls. The planet below had been the homeworld of the Myran Republic. 3 billion peaceful beings had lived there just hours ago. Now the cities were empty shells. The Myrans had not even tried to fight. One look at the HFY ships had been enough. They had simply laid down and died from pure terror. This was how it always went. The HFY ships would appear from the void like living nightmares. Their vessels were grown, not built. Bone and metal twisted together in shapes that hurt to look at. Dark energy flowed through veins in their hulls. When they wanted to, they could phase between dimensions, appearing anywhere without warning. But it was not just their ships that broke their enemies. The HFY themselves were designed by evolution to inspire fear. Their very presence sent waves of terror into the minds of other species. They could taste fear in the air. They could smell the chemicals that other creatures released when afraid, and they fed on it like food. Zelkar remembered his first hunt as a young warrior. The prey had been a species called the Korthan. They were strong fighters with thick armor and powerful weapons. But when the HFY had appeared, the Korthan had simply stopped fighting. They had stood still and let themselves be killed. The fear had paralyzed them completely. Since then, Zelkar had conquered 47 star systems. Not one species had ever managed to fight back effectively. Some tried at first, but the terror always won in the end. The HFY had become the apex predators of the galaxy. Nothing could stand against them. His communication officer, a smaller HFY with pale gray chitin, approached. "Hive Commander," it hissed. "Our scouts report a new vessel entering the outer edge of our territory." Zelkar turned his massive head. "What species?" "Unknown, sir. The ship design is unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be carrying a large population, perhaps 50,000 life forms." A slow smile spread across Zelkar's face, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Excellent. It has been too long since we encountered a new species. Signal the fleet. We move to intercept." Far away, in the black emptiness of space, the human colony ship New Horizon continued its journey toward what its crew hoped would be a new home. The massive vessel stretched over 2 kilometers from end to end. Inside its rotating sections, 50,000 humans lived and worked, unaware that they were flying toward the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge looking out at the stars. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had been traveling for 8 months since leaving Earth's colonies. Everyone was ready to find a new world to call home. "Captain," called Lieutenant Chris Taylor from the communications station. "I'm picking up some strange signals from ahead of us." Martinez walked over to Taylor's station. "What kind of signals?" "Hard to say, sir. They're very weak and broken up. Sounds like distress calls, but the language is completely unknown. And Captain, some of these signals cut off very suddenly." Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her technical station. She was a small woman with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Could be equipment failures," she said, "or maybe solar flares interfering with their communications." Martinez frowned. "How many signals are we talking about?" Taylor checked his readings. "At least 12 different sources, sir, all from different directions, all in unknown languages." "That's odd," said Security Chief Tony Brooks, a large man with scarred hands from years of military service. "Why would so many different species all be having communication problems in the same region of space?" Martinez felt a cold worry growing in his stomach. "Keep monitoring those signals. If you pick up anything else, let me know immediately." As the New Horizon continued forward, the crew had no way of knowing that every one of those cut-off signals represented an entire civilization that had been destroyed. The Moran Republic, the warrior clans of Proxima Tau, the crystal cities of Zerion Prime, all gone. All consumed by creatures that fed on fear itself. Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's chief scientist, was working in her laboratory when the first clear alien transmission came through. She was a young woman with blonde hair and curious green eyes. She had spent her whole career studying the possibility of alien life. Now that possibility was about to become a very dangerous reality. The transmission was unlike anything she had ever heard. It was not just sound. It seemed to carry something else with it. Something that made her skin crawl and her heart beat faster. The alien words were harsh and clicking, like insects communicating in some ancient language. But Dr. Foster was human. She had grown up watching horror movies. She had read about every nightmare that human imagination could create. And while the alien transmission was disturbing, it did not break her mind with terror. It just made her very curious about what kind of creatures could make such sounds. In the depths of space, the Kethvar fleet began to move. Zelkar stood in his command chamber, already tasting the fear that would soon flow from this new species. He had no doubt that these humans would be just like all the others. They would see the Kethvar ships and immediately understand that they were facing something beyond their worst nightmares. The hunt was about to begin. But for the first time in their species' history, the Kethvar were about to encounter prey that would not behave as expected. They were about to meet creatures who had spent millions of years learning not to fear the dark. They were about to face humanity. The space around the New Horizon suddenly twisted and bent like water. Reality itself seemed to crack open as something massive pushed through from another dimension. The human crew watched in amazement as the largest ship they had ever seen materialized directly in front of them. The Kethvar flagship Death's Embrace was a thing of nightmares. It looked like someone had taken the skeleton of a giant whale and covered it with black metal and pulsing red veins. Spikes jutted out from its hull at random angles. Organic-looking pods hung from its sides like tumors. The entire ship seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting slowly as if it were alive. Captain Martinez stood frozen on the bridge for a moment, not from fear, but from pure amazement. "Well," he said finally, "that's not something you see every day." Lieutenant Taylor's communication equipment suddenly came alive with a transmission unlike anything in their databases. The signal was not just audio. It carried something else, with it something that tried to crawl into their minds and plant seeds of terror. The alien voice that came through was like the sound of breaking bones mixed with insect clicks. Inferior beings, the voice said in perfect English, somehow having learned their language instantly. "You have entered the domain of the Kethvar. We are your death. We are your ending. Look upon our vessel and know that your time has come. We will feast upon your fear before we consume your flesh." The bridge fell silent for several seconds. The crew looked at each other, then at the alien ship, then back at each other. Finally, Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez started to snicker. "Seriously?" she said, pointing at the viewing screen. "They think that thing is scary? Look at those exposed power conduits running along the outside of the hull. One good hit and their whole ship would lose power." Security Chief Tony Brooks squinted at the alien vessel. "And what's with all those spikes? They serve no tactical purpose, they're just there to look intimidating. That's like bringing a sword to a gunfight and decorating it with skulls." Dr. Amy Foster leaned forward from her science station. "The organic components appear to be purely aesthetic as well. They've sacrificed function for fear factor. It's actually quite inefficient." Captain Martinez found himself chuckling. "You know what this reminds me of? Remember that old horror movie, The Space Monster from Planet X? The alien ship in that movie looked scarier than this thing." The laughter started small but quickly spread across the bridge. Communications Officer Karen White giggled as she studied. The alien transmission. Did they really just say they're going to feast on our fear? What are they, emotional vampires? Pilot Ryan Clark was examining the enemy ship's movement patterns on his display. "Look at how they're flying. No evasive maneuvers, no tactical positioning. They're just sitting there expecting us to be too scared to fight back. On board the Death's Embrace, Hive Commander Zelkar stared at his sensors in confusion. The fear detection equipment was giving him readings he had never seen before. Instead of the expected terror response, the instruments showed something completely different. The humans were producing brain chemicals associated with amusement and joy. This cannot be correct, Zelkar hissed to his second-in-command. Check the sensors again. The smaller Kethvar worked frantically at his controls. The readings are accurate, Hive Commander. The human vessel is broadcasting sounds on multiple frequencies. They appear to be laughing. Zelkar's 6 red eyes widened. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to their presence with laughter. Fear was the universal language. All intelligent life understood that the Kethvar meant death, but these humans seemed to find them amusing. Back on the New Horizon, the crew was still chuckling when Dr. Foster made an important discovery. Captain, I'm analyzing the alien transmission. There are bio-neural components in their signal. They're trying to trigger fear responses in our brains. Is it working? Martinez asked. Foster shook her head. Not at all. In fact, the frequency they're using seems to activate the humor centers in human brains. They're literally trying to scare us with something that makes us want to laugh. Engineer Rodriguez wiped tears from her eyes. That explains why this is so funny. They're using fear as a weapon, but they don't understand human psychology at all. The alien transmission came again, louder and more threatening this time. You will submit to the Kethvar. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. Fear us. Security Chief Brooks burst into loud laughter. Did they just call themselves apex predators? Look at them. They're flying a ship held together with what looks like spit and dark magic. My grandmother could design a better warship. Captain Martinez activated the ship's communication system. This is Captain Jake Martinez of the human vessel New Horizon. Thank you for the entertainment, but we're just passing through your space. We have no intention of bothering anyone. The response was immediate and furious. Entertainment? Entertainment? We are the terror of the void. We are the nightmare that ends civilizations. Yeah, okay, Martinez replied, still smiling. Look, we appreciate the whole scary alien routine, but we've seen better special effects in our movies. If you'll excuse us, we have a colony to establish. On the Kethvar ship, something unprecedented was happening. For the first time in their species, history, Zelkar felt uncertain. The humans were not just unafraid, they were actively mocking the Kethvar. The fear energy that his species needed to survive was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was only this strange human emotion that seemed to make them stronger rather than weaker. Sir, whispered his communications officer, the human crew is sharing audio recordings with each other. They appear to be making jokes about us. Zelkar listened to the human chatter with growing alarm. They were calling his magnificent flagship a haunted house in space and something from a bad dream. One human suggested they should charge admission for people to tour the silly, scary ship. The Hive Commander felt something he had never experienced before. Embarrassment. These creatures were treating the most feared predators in the galaxy like a source of amusement. They were laughing at the Kethvar. Prepare for attack, Zelkar ordered, his voice shaking with rage. If they will not fear us willingly, we will teach them terror through pain. But as the Kethvar weapons powered up, something strange was happening to their bio-neural systems. The sound of human laughter was interfering with their ship's organic components. The fear-feeding mechanisms that powered their technology were becoming confused and sluggish. For the first time in their history, the Kethvar were about to discover what it felt like to be afraid. The first Kethvar attack came without warning. Dark energy beams shot from the Death's Embrace toward the New Horizon. Captain Martinez watched the weapons fire approach and calmly ordered evasive maneuvers. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's communication system. We have hostile aliens shooting at us. This is not a drill, but please don't panic. They seem to be about as good at fighting as they are at being scary. Pilot Ryan Clark spun the massive colony, Ship with surprising grace, the Kethvar weapons missed completely, striking empty space where the New Horizon had been moments before. Their targeting system is terrible, Clark reported with a grin. They're aiming where we were, not where we're going. It's like they've never fought anyone who actually fought back. Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez was already working at her station, analyzing the alien weapon signatures. Captain, their energy weapons are designed to cause maximum pain and terror, not maximum damage. They're built to make people suffer, not to actually destroy ships efficiently. Security Chief Tony Brooks activated the ship's defensive systems. Bring us about, Clark. Let's show these bug-eyed monsters what human weapons can do. The New Horizons' return fire was precise and devastating. Human weapons were designed for one purpose: to destroy the enemy as quickly and efficiently as possible. The energy beams struck the Kethvar ship's exposed power conduits exactly where Rodriguez had identified them. Explosions bloomed along the Death's Embraces Hall. The organic components that the Kethvar were so proud of turned out to be major weaknesses. They were not protected by armor and burned easily when hit. Direct hit, reported Weapons Officer Ben Carter. Their ship is losing power in 3 sections. On the Kethvar flagship, Hive Commander Zelkar stared at his damage reports in disbelief. No species had ever returned fire this effectively on the first encounter. Most were too terrified to think clearly, but these humans fought like they had been studying Kethvar ships for years. Deploy the boarding pods, Zelkar ordered. We will take their ship by force and feed on their fear face to face. Dozens of smaller Kethvar vessels launched from the main ship. They looked like flying insects made of black metal and bone. Each one carried a squad of Kethvar warriors ready to board the human vessel. Dr. Amy Foster watched the approaching enemy ships on her sensors. Captain, I'm detecting something interesting. The alien biosignatures are showing signs of stress. I think our laughter is actually affecting them physically. How so? Martinez asked while directing the ship's defenses. Their fear-feeding biology seems to work both ways, Foster explained. They've evolved to absorb fear from other species, but when they encounter something that doesn't fear them, it confuses their entire system. The sound of human laughter is like poison to them. Security Chief Brooks was coordinating the defense against the boarding pods. Marines, this is Brooks. We have incoming hostiles. Remember your training, watch your sectors, and try not to laugh too hard while you're shooting. The first Kethvar boarding pod crashed through the hull of Section 7. The aliens inside expected to find terrified humans cowering in fear. Instead, they found Marine Sergeant Matt Johnson and his squad waiting with weapons ready and grins on their faces. Welcome aboard the New Horizon, Johnson said cheerfully before opening fire. Hope you enjoy your stay. The Kethvar warriors were 8 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and armor like insect shells. They had conquered countless species through sheer intimidation. But the human Marines showed no fear at all. Instead, they treated the boarding action like an exciting game. Johnson, watch your left, called Corporal Lisa White while firing her rifle at an alien warrior. These guys are uglier than my ex-boyfriend. That's saying something, Johnson replied, tossing a grenade at a group of Kethvar. Your ex was pretty scary. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. The humans used tactics that made no sense to creatures who relied on fear. They made jokes while fighting. They sang songs while shooting. Some of them actually seemed to be enjoying themselves. Private Kevin Brown was cornered by 2 Kethvar warriors who thought they finally had a human at their mercy. They expected him to beg for his life. Instead, Brown pulled out his sidearm and said, "You know what the difference is between you and a real monster?" The aliens paused, confused by the question. "Real monsters are actually scary," Brown said and shot both of them. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. The Kethvar boarding parties found themselves outfought and outmaneuvered by humans, who refused to be intimidated. Worse, the constant sound of human laughter and conversation was making the aliens feel sick and weak. Dr. Foster made another important discovery while monitoring the battle. Captain, the aliens are showing severe stress reactions to our emotional output. Their bio-neural systems are designed to process fear, not humor or courage. We're literally giving them indigestion. Can we use that somehow? Martinez asked. Foster's eyes lit up. I think so. If we can amplify our emotional signatures and broadcast them throughout the ship, we might be able to disable them without even fighting. Engineer Rodriguez looked up from her station. I can modify the ship's communication system to carry emotional frequencies. Give me 10 minutes. You've got it, Martinez said. All Marines fall back to defensive positions. We're going to try something new. The HFY warriors thought the humans were retreating in fear. They pressed forward, expecting victory. But then the ship's speakers came alive with the sound of human laughter, jokes, and cheerful conversation amplified to incredible levels. The effect on the aliens was immediate and devastating. They began stumbling and falling as their nervous systems overloaded. Some dropped their weapons and clutched their heads in pain. Others simply collapsed as their fear-processing biology shut down completely. It's working, Foster reported excitedly. Their biosignatures are going chaotic. They can't handle positive human emotions at this intensity. On the death's embrace, Zelkar felt something he had never experienced in his long life. Genuine fear. His boarding parties were failing. His weapons were ineffective, and the sound of human laughter was making him physically ill. For the first time in HFY history, the galaxy's apex predators were discovering what it felt like to be prey. And the hunters who had found them were a species that fought with joy instead of fear, laughter instead of terror. The humans were not just surviving the HFY attack, they were winning. And they were having fun doing it. Word spread through the HFY fleet faster than wildfire. The impossible was happening. The boarding parties were retreating. Warriors who had never known defeat were limping back to their ships, clutching their heads and making sounds of distress. Hive Commander Zelkar received reports from his sub-commanders that made no sense. The humans are immune to fear induction. Their emotional output is poisoning our warriors. They fight while making celebration sounds. But the worst report came from War Master Krixtal, one of Zelkar's most experienced fighters. Hive Commander, Krixtal said, his voice shaking, I have never seen anything like this. The humans do not just resist fear, they seem to feed on conflict the way we feed on terror. The more we attack them, the stronger and happier they become. Captain Martinez stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the alien ships pull back to regroup. He had an idea that would either save his people or get them all killed. But it was a very human idea, which meant it was probably crazy enough to work. Rodriguez, he called to his chief engineer, how much power can we put into our communication array? Quite a bit, Captain. Why do you ask? Martinez smiled. We're going to turn up the volume on humanity. Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her science station with excitement. Captain, I've been studying the alien retreat patterns. Their ships are having system failures all across their fleet. The sound of our laughter is interfering with their bio-neural networks on a massive scale. Then let's give them something to really worry about, Martinez said. He activated the ship-wide communication system. Attention all hands, this is your captain. We're about to try something that has never been done before in the history of space combat. We're going to weaponize human culture. Engineer Rodriguez worked frantically at her station. Captain, I'm linking our entertainment databases to the communication array. We can broadcast music, movies, comedy shows, anything we want. Security Chief Tony Brooks grinned. I vote for that old Earth comedy special about aliens being idiots. Perfect, Martinez agreed. Also add some rock music, action movie soundtracks, and anything else that shows human courage and humor. Within minutes, the New Horizon began broadcasting the full spectrum of human entertainment directly at the HFY fleet. Comedy routines about fearless heroes, rock songs about standing up to bullies, movie scenes of humans facing impossible odds and winning through determination and clever thinking. The effect on the alien ships was immediate and catastrophic. Their bioorganic systems, designed to process and amplify fear, began shutting down when exposed to concentrated human courage and humor. Power failures cascaded through their fleet as ship after ship lost control of their fear-based technology. On the death's embrace, Zelkar watched his mighty fleet being destroyed not by weapons, but by the sound of human laughter and music. His own ship was beginning to suffer system failures as the human cultural broadcast interfered with every fear-processing system on board. Sir, reported his communications officer. "We're receiving multiple distress signals from the fleet. Ships are losing power. Life support is failing, and many of our warriors are becoming physically ill from exposure to human emotional frequencies." Dr. Foster made another breakthrough discovery. "Captain, I've figured out why this is working so well. The HFY evolved as fear parasites. They've spent millions of years becoming perfectly adapted to prey on species that respond to intimidation. But humans evolved differently. We're persistence hunters." "What does that mean?" Martinez asked. "It means our ancestors survived by chasing down prey until it died of exhaustion and fear. We're not the prey species in this relationship. We're the predators. The HFY have built their entire civilization around being the scariest thing in the galaxy, but they've never faced a species that scares its prey to death." Engineer Rodriguez looked up from her technical readouts with amazement. "Captain, we're detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the alien fleet. Their ships are literally being poisoned by human emotions." Martinez activated the external communication system and broadcast directly to the HFY fleet. "This is Captain Martinez of the human vessel New Horizon. You came here expecting to find prey. Instead, you found predators. You feed on fear, but we feed on challenge. Every time you attack us, you make us stronger. Every time you try to scare us, you make us laugh. You've made a fundamental error in your understanding of the universe." The human broadcast continued with clips from Earth's greatest comedians making jokes about monsters and bullies, songs about heroes who never gave up, movie scenes of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when faced with impossible odds. Throughout the HFY fleet, something unprecedented was happening. Warriors who had conquered 1,000 worlds were experiencing fear for the first time in their lives. The humans were not just immune to HFY intimidation tactics, they seemed to grow stronger from conflict. War Master Krixtal sent an emergency message to Zelkar. "Hive Commander, we must retreat. Our warriors are beginning to panic. They do not understand how to fight an enemy that enjoys fighting. Some are refusing to board their attack ships." Zelkar felt his world collapsing around him. The HFY Dominion had never retreated from any battle. They were the apex predators of the galaxy. But these humans had done something no other species had ever managed. They had made the HFY afraid. On the New Horizon, communications, Officer Karen White was monitoring alien transmissions with growing excitement. "Captain, you need to hear this. The aliens are arguing among themselves. Some want to retreat, others want to call for reinforcements, but they all sound scared." "Scared of us?" Martinez asked. "Terrified," White confirmed. "They keep calling us the Laughing Death and predators that hunt with joy. I think we've broken their understanding of how the universe works." Dr. Foster nodded. "It makes sense. They've spent so long being the ultimate predators that they never developed defenses against something that wasn't afraid of them. We're their natural enemy, and they never saw us coming." The HFY fleet began to pull back, their ships limping through space as system after system failed under the assault of human culture. For the first time in their history, the galaxy's most feared empire was retreating. But Captain Martinez was not done with them yet. He had one more lesson to teach these would-be predators about what it meant to face humanity in battle. Hive Commander Zelkar made a decision that would have been impossible just hours before. The greatest predator in the galaxy was going to surrender to creatures he had planned to consume. But as his ship systems continued to fail under the assault of human laughter and music, he realized he had no choice. "Open a communication channel to the human vessel," he ordered, his voice weak and shaking. Captain Martinez received the alien transmission on the bridge of the New Horizon. Zelkar appeared on their viewing screen, and the human crew was surprised to see that the terrifying alien commander looked sick and tired. "Human leader," Zelkar said, struggling to speak. We acknowledge that we have made an error. Your species is not prey. We request permission to withdraw from this space." The bridge crew looked at each other in amazement. The galaxy's most feared predators were asking for permission to run away, but Martinez was not ready to let them go so easily. "You came here to feed on our fear and kill our people. You've probably done the same thing to hundreds of other species. Why should we let you leave? Zelkar's 6 red eyes showed something no Kethvar had ever displayed before. Shame. Because we did not know. We thought all species were the same. We thought fear was universal. We have never encountered predators like you. Dr. Amy Foster stepped forward. Captain, I think we have an opportunity here. If the Kethvar Empire is built on fear, and we've proven that fear doesn't work on humans, we might be able to change the entire balance of power in this galaxy. Security Chief Tony Brooks nodded. The other species they've conquered are probably still out there, hiding and afraid. If they see that the Kethvar can be defeated, they might fight back. Martinez thought for a moment, then activated the communication system. Zelkar, I'm going to make you a deal. You're going to send a message to every species in your empire. You're going to tell them that the Kethvar are no longer the apex predators of this galaxy. You're going to tell them that humans are here, and we don't tolerate bullies. The alien commander's head drooped in defeat. And if we refuse? Engineer Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her station with a cheerful smile. Then we broadcast human comedy shows at your entire fleet until your ships fall apart. We've got thousands of hours of material about monsters who turn out to be cowards. We also have action movies, added pilot Ryan Clark. Lots of stories about heroes who defeat impossible enemies through courage and clever thinking. Zelkar realized he was trapped. The humans had found a weapon against the Kethvar that was more effective than any military force. They had weaponized hope and courage against a species that lived on fear and despair. We accept your terms, Zelkar said quietly. Within an hour, a message went out across the galaxy from the Kethvar Empire. It was unlike any communication they had ever sent before. Instead of threats and demands for surrender, it was an admission of defeat. To all species within Kethvar space, the message began. We have encountered a new power that has proven superior to our own. The humans of Earth have defeated our fleet without destroying us. They have shown us that we are not the apex predators we believed ourselves to be. Any species that wishes to resist Kethvar rule now has allies among the stars. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had hidden in terror for generations began sending messages to the New Horizon. The peaceful Morans, who everyone thought had been destroyed, revealed that many had survived in hidden colonies. The warrior clans of Proxima Tau emerged, from underground bunkers ready to fight again. Dozens of other civilizations that had been crushed by Kethvar terror began to organize resistance movements. Dr. Foster monitored the galactic communications with excitement. Captain, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. It seems like the Kethvar never actually destroyed most of these civilizations. They just scared them into hiding. Fear is a powerful weapon, Martinez observed, but it only works if people stay afraid. Communications Officer Karen White looked up from her station. Sir, we're getting requests for help from dozens of different species. They want to know if humans will help them fight the Kethvar. Martinez considered this carefully. Send a response to all of them. Tell them that humans believe in freedom and the right of all species to live without fear. We'll help anyone who's willing to stand up and fight for themselves. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. The Kethvar Empire began to collapse not through military conquest, but through the spread of hope. Species that had been terrified for generations remembered how to be brave. The sound of human laughter, broadcast across the galaxy, became a symbol of resistance against tyranny. The New Horizon became the flagship of an alliance that grew larger every day. Captain Martinez found himself the leader of a coalition that included dozens of different species, all united by their refusal to live in fear. The final confrontation came when Zelkar requested a personal meeting with Martinez. The two commanders met in a neutral space station, surrounded by representatives from across the galaxy. I must know, Zelkar said, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and curiosity. What are you? How can a species be immune to fear? Martinez smiled. We're not immune to fear. We feel fear just like everyone else. The difference is that we decided a long time ago not to let fear control us. We're humans. We laugh at death, make jokes in the face of danger, and never give up even when the odds are impossible. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy or the smartest or the most advanced, but we're the one species that refuses to be prey. And now? Zelkar asked. Now you have a choice, Martinez replied. You can continue trying to rule through fear and face the combined resistance of every free species in the galaxy. Or you can learn to live without feeding on terror. We're willing to help you find a new way, but only if you're willing to change. The Kethvar Empire officially ended that day, not through war or destruction, but through the simple realization that predators and prey were not fixed roles in the universe. The galaxy had learned that the most dangerous predator was not the one with the biggest claws or the most frightening appearance. The most dangerous predator was the one that laughed in the face of danger and refused to back down. Years later, when alien children asked their parents about the time when the galaxy was ruled by fear, they were told the story of the humans who came from a small blue planet and taught the universe how to be brave. And they were told that if they ever faced something that seemed too scary to fight, they should remember the sound of human laughter echoing across the stars. The humans had become the galaxy's new protectors, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the simple act of showing others that it was possible to choose courage over fear. And whenever a new threat emerged, whenever some new predator tried to rule through terror, the same response echoed across the galaxy. The sound of human laughter, and the promise that no one had to face their fears alone.